Pentagon says that several dozen American special forces have been deployed to support Turkish forces that are fighting against Daesh Takfiri terrorists in Syria. It added that the troops have been deployed at the request of the Turkish government to help its forces in and around the Syrian border. A British judge has condemned 4 UK soldiers who forced a 15-year-old Iraqi boy into a canal and let him drown during the Iraq War. Ahmed Jabbar Karim Ali was among 4 men detained in May 2003, that is, on suspicion of looting. Britain's Ministry of Defense has apologized for the incident. At least 17 people have been killed by fresh Saudi airstrikes in Yemen. Air raids targeted the provinces of Marib, Sada, and Sana'a. Over 9,600 Yemenis, many of them women and children, have been killed since Saudi Arabia invaded its southern neighbor March of last year. A new report by a group of rights activists and academics says that over 3,000 out of more than 8,600 Saudi airstrikes in Yemen have hit civilian facilities. The report listed 147 air raids on Yemeni schools, 114 on markets, 34 on mosques, and 26 on universities. At least 28 people have been killed after a bomber detonated his explosives in a mosque in Pakistan's northwest. Nearly 30 others were also wounded in the bomb blast, which took place in the Mohman tribal district. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the deadly attack. People staged an anti-government protest in Bahrain's Diraz village after security forces prevented them from gathering for Friday prayers. People also chanted slogans in support of top Shia cleric Sheikh Isa Qasim, whose citizenship has been revoked by the ruling Al Khalifa regime. French police have removed some 1,500 refugees living in makeshift camp in the capital, Paris. Local authorities say that asylum seekers are sleeping in unsanitary conditions in tents and on mattresses. Europe's grappling with its worst refugee crisis since the Second World War. Refugees have fled conflicts in their countries. The UN Refugee Agency says the number of South Sudanese who fled their war-hit country has surpassed 1 million. The international body added that most refugees are women and children, including survivors of violent attacks and sexual assault. The conflicts fueled hunger and disease throughout South Sudan.
At least 25 people have been killed after a bomber detonated his explosives in a mosque in Pakistan's northwest. Nearly 30 others were wounded in a bomb blast which took place in Mohman tribal district. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the deadly attack. Israeli forces have killed a Palestinian man over an alleged stabbing attack in the city of Al-Khalil, also known as Hebron. Israelis also gunned down another Palestinian in the same city, claiming that the victim wanted to run over Israeli soldiers. Another Palestinian was shot dead over an alleged stabbing attack in Jerusalem. Al-Quds. Foreign-backed militants have once again violated a ceasefire that came into effect in Syria on Monday. The militants shelled 2 eastern neighborhoods of the Syrian capital, Damascus. Meanwhile, military sources say the Syrian army repelled an attack by armed groups who tried to enter eastern Damascus via one of the neighborhoods. And people have staged an anti-government protest in Bahrain's Diraz village after security forces prevented them from gathering for Friday prayers. People also chanted slogans in support of top Shia cleric Sheikh Isa Qasim, whose citizenship has been revoked by the ruling Al Khalifa regime. At least 17 people have been killed by fresh Saudi airstrikes in Yemen. The air raids targeted the provinces of Marib, Sada, and Sana'a. Over 9,600 Yemenis, many of them women and children, have been killed since Saudi Arabia invaded its southern neighbor in March last year. In the Philippines, clashes have erupted between police and protesters in the capital, Manila. The demonstrators demanded that all U.S. troops be removed from Mindanao Island. Earlier this week, President Rodrigo Duterte said he wants U.S. special forces to leave southern Philippines. A British judge has condemned 4 UK soldiers who forced a 15-year-old Iraqi boy into a canal and let him drown during the Iraq War. Ahmad Jabbar Karim Ali was among 4 men detained in May 2003 on suspicion of looting. Britain's Ministry of Defense has apologized for the incident. And French police have removed some 1,500 refugees living in a makeshift camp in the capital, Paris. Local authorities say the asylum seekers were sleeping in unsanitary conditions in tents and on mattresses. Europe is grappling with its worst refugee crisis since World War II. The refugees have fled conflicts in their countries.
Since 2011, the Syrian conflict has drawn more than 27,000 foreign militants. Many of them have pledged allegiance to the ISIL terrorist group. Around 6,000 militants have come from Europe, and with Takfiri terrorists rapidly losing ground in Iraq and Syria, some reports suggest thousands are now seeking to return to Europe. This has put the German Interior Minister, Thomas de Maizière, on edge. He has warned that around 520 potential attackers are already living in the country. Following the announcement, 3 Syrian refugees who are believed to have links to ISIL were arrested in northern Hamburg, causing more alarm. This is while Germany's Federal Police Office received 400 tip-off phone calls in relation to potential terrorists living in Germany, out of which only 60 have been serious and attended to.
There is a latent fear of terrorism in the German population, but it has been produced. And there have been 2 triggers in principle. The first trigger was obviously 9/11. And the second trigger was German reunification.
In July, 3 terror attacks carried by refugees shocked Germany, which saw right-wing anti-refugee parties rise to power. The attacks also brought about changes to Germany's security policies, with more officers and security cameras deployed in various locations. However, according to experts, the fundamental problem is the West's wrong approach to the situation in the Middle East. They say the West's failure to condemn and act against all terrorist groups in the Middle East is impacting the heart of Europe.
Many problems in the Third World have not been countered in the right way by the industrialized countries. And Syria and all the problems in the Near East are only a point of case.
Germany and other European countries are facing increasing terrorist threats on their soil. But in the eyes of many analysts, the European Union's double standard on terrorism, such as dividing terrorists into good ones and bad ones, are mainly to blame for the worsening insecurity in the bloc. Amit Farjaleh, Press TV, Berlin.
We begin with new information about the officer in Shelby who was shot while in the line of duty. We learned this afternoon that Officer Tim Brackeen has died. Police say he and other officers were trying to serve a warrant to Irving Fenner Jr. on Saturday when Fenner shot Brackeen in the torso. Now the hunt is on for Fenner as we hear more from a shaken community in Shelby. WBTV's Christian Flores is in Shelby with more.
We're just heartbroken.
The city of Shelby is now in a state of shock after learning Officer Tim Brackeen died Monday afternoon. Both people who know him,
but he's like a son for me too,
and complete strangers,
I just now found out about it,
stopped by a makeshift memorial to honor Brackeen. He was only 38 years old and leaves behind a widow and young daughter.
That's a really, really moment of we're feeling so sorry for this situation.
We had been praying for him. And when I heard the news, it just hurted me so bad.
Shelby Mayor Stan Anthony also came out to pay his respects. Anthony presented Brackeen with the Officer of the Year award in 2012, but he says he was so much more than that.
Tim Brackeen was just a wonderful human being. Our community is just in a state of shock right now. To lose someone that was such a devoted and loved employee of our city.
This is something neighbors in Shelby now know. They say they're going to continue to show their support for the police department during this tough time.
He was out here just trying to do his job. And we love the law enforcement officers.
We need more people like him.
Anthony says Officer Brackeen's family will need the support now more than ever.
Prayers go out to Tim's family. I know this has been a difficult time for them. We need to rally around them, as I know our community will.
That was Christian Flores reporting. There is a $10,000 reward for anyone who has information that leads to an arrest and conviction in this case. And tonight, a prayer vigil for Officer Brackeen will be held at 7 o'clock. The event will take place at the Courthouse Square in Uptown Shelby, so if you plan to go, you are asked to please wear something blue.
North Carolina's U.S. Senator Tom Tillis says he's praying for Brackeen's family during this difficult time. In a statement, Tillis wrote in part, "We can never forget about the debt of gratitude we also owe to the parents, spouses, and children of our law enforcement officers, family members who are forced to accept the reality of the tremendous danger that confronts their loved ones every single day they go to work."
Stay with us as we work to get information about funeral arrangements for Officer Brackeen. We will continue to follow the latest on the suspect search as well on WBTV.com and on the WBTV News app, and tonight at 11 o'clock.
One of our field technicians, whose job is to monitor water levels in the ponds, when they were making their rounds, they identified that there was a water level drop. We activated a recovery well so that we can capture any water that has gone down the hole. We've been talking to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection every single day. They've been out here.
Thousands of Mexicans marched on the capital city on Thursday to demand the resignation of President Enrique Peña Nieto in a demonstration planned to coincide with the country's independence celebrations. An estimated 10,000 protesters marched with blackened Mexican flags after a series of scandals have reduced President Enrique Peña Nieto's approval ratings to just 23%. Two personal corruption scandals, rocketing crime rates, and the invitation of Donald Trump to Mexico have made the Mexican head of state the country's most unpopular leader for the past 2 decades, and the furious protesters were demanding change.
Peña Nieto promised change when he became president 4 years ago, but his inaction has only made things worse. Our country is in serious trouble and we need strong leadership at the top.
Rates of crime, disappearance and murder are higher than ever in Mexico. In 2016 alone, over 200 municipal politicians have been executed by organized crime in the country. The protesters were prevented from reaching the center by a force of riot police who stopped the protesters short of the Zocalo.
We have a right to protest wherever we choose, and the government's refusal to allow us through today just shows how little support the president has.
As Mexico celebrates its independence, the public's anger at the president's leadership has brought thousands here to demand his resignation. This is yet another sign that the public is still waiting on the sweeping changes he promised 4 years ago. Alistair Baverstock, Press TV, Mexico City.
The people living here, our governments are working for government, so they shouldn't be living in a place like this. So the government should help us, at least put on good buildings for us. We found like 5 units, they couldn't come to rescue. So the ones that came, they came at last when the fire already burned down the buildings. So they have to chase them away because they have no use.
In a first, U.S. Special Operations Forces are now assisting Turkish troops and Syrian rebels battling ISIS inside Syria. Turkey sent tanks into Syria last month to retake the border region from ISIS. These American advisors will amount to just a few dozen. The U.S. force in Syria is capped at about 300 troops. Syria's largest city has been cut in two by the civil war, one side held by rebels, the other by the Assad dictatorship. The people of Aleppo are starving. Aid is blocked despite the ceasefire. Elizabeth Palmer is there.
for people trapped in this war zone, the small pleasures of normal life are extra sweet.
And nothing says normal life on a hot day like a swimming pool. And believe it or not, here in government-controlled Aleppo, several of the pools are actually open for business.
In the streets, people socialize. They do odd jobs, even sass the camera. And it all helps to blot out the violence and the fear. But nothing can disguise the ugly scar that divides this city between the government and its armed opposition. 13-year-old Aya Al-Hassan is giving us a tour of her neighborhood of Al Maidan, right on the front line.
This curtain here, what's that for?
There are here snipers.
The snipers, just a few hundred yards away, are opposition fighters who have aimed their weapons at Syrian army positions deep in this neighborhood.
Did you lose some friends in this war?
Oh yes, I've lost many, she says. Some were killed by mortars or snipers. Some just left the country. Aya, like everyone who lives here, can remember when fellow citizens of Aleppo lived down that road beyond the barriers, not men with guns.
What was the worst time you can remember?
One night, she says, a mortar actually landed in our house. It was a concrete apartment like these, so a miracle no one was killed. With courage beyond her years, Aya's got her eye on the future. I want my city whole again, she says, and at peace.
Scott, we weren't able to meet the people on the opposition side of that divide because we're not allowed to cross the line, but they're under siege right now by government troops. And they're the ones most desperate for that UN aid that's still stuck at the Turkish border.
Elizabeth Palmer inside Syria for us tonight. Liz, thank you.
There are now more than 1 million refugees who fled South Sudan, and the United Nations says that number will continue to rise. Those refugees have been uprooted due to violence stemming from the country's civil war that started in 2013. Attempts to create peace have failed, and renewed violence is driving more people out, the majority of whom are under 18. So how does that over 1 million mark stack up against other conflict areas? The countries that have produced the most refugees are Syria, Afghanistan, and Somalia. At the end of 2015, South Sudan came in 4th among refugee source countries, but now joins that small list of countries that have produced more than 1 million refugees. It's closing the gap between Somalia, which produced 1.1 million refugees. 2.7 million refugees originated from Afghanistan and 4.9 million from Syria. For Newsy, I'm Melissa Prax.
Holston, Iowa. What's the address emergency?
I'm in the parking lot by Planet Fitness in Kingston. I was looking for my husband and I found him in his car. I don't know if he's breathing.
Are you able to get the door open?
I'm in it. The door's unlocked. He's laying back. And I think he's moving down.
Ma'am?
You gotta send somebody.
Ma'am? Are you able to check to see if his chest is going up and down?
I don't think it is.
Not breathing.
I don't think it is.
Ma'am, are you able to get him out of the car onto his back?
No. He's laying flat on his back.
Are you able to get him on the ground? We want to try doing CPR, okay? Ma'am, they're already dispatched, okay? Ma'am, I need you to calm down. I need you to calm down. I need you...
see a little station. No. Well, here's the latest at Newbury Station. I am having to go home in my shoes and socks. Well, my only shoes on. I'm just hoping this is not too deep, but it's quite something. Cars going underwater here. Little alternative up to